come in, please. Hello,
Hey there,
Trevor.
Dr. Ma. Thank you for letting me shadow you today.
Sure. So, next we'll be meeting with the caregiver of a longtime patient of mine. The patient's name is Wilson.
This is Wilson.
He has Lewy body dementia. His symptoms are fairly severe. So we'll be talking with his caregiver. Do you have any question before we go in?
Yes, what exactly is Lewy body disease?
So Lewy body disease is a type of dementia, most common in people aged 15 to 85. It affects more than 1.4 million people in the US. I'd say more because LBD is often misdiagnosed with another type of dementia, with Alzheimer. Are you familiar with Alzheimer and dementia?
Yes, I recall taking some classes on LBD, but I also remember learning about Alzheimer's, and I know they're very similar. Do you know what the differences are?
Yes, yes. Even though they appear to be very similar, there's still many differences between Alzheimer and LBD. Alzheimer is more related to memory function disabilities, while LBD is more related to movement, like physical aspects, and also autonomic nervous system dysfunctions.
What exactly is the autonomic nervous system?
Well, the autonomic nervous system is your body's way to regulate things without your conscious thoughts, like blood pressure regulation, heart rate.
I see. Despite the differences you have mentioned, I feel like it would still be difficult to diagnose between them.
That is true. The diagnosis for LBD is still based on clinical decision because a definitive way to tell what the patient is having cannot be done until an autopsy.
Is there any research going into different ways of diagnosing?
Yes. Actually, we are still developing the biomarker test, which is the test to detect the molecular sign of some associated disease, in this case LBD. But this test is still required like future investigation because there are not enough study being conducted on that.
I see.
Yeah, so let's go see the patient.
Let's go see him.
Alright, so Dr. Lewy actually discovered Lewy bodies while working in Dr. Alzheimer's lab in the early 1900s.
In school, I've been learning about different parts of the brain and various neurotransmitters that can cause change. Are any of these applicable here?
Well, actually, there's a protein that make up the Lewy bodies of the brain. Its name's alpha-synuclein, but its function is not fully understood yet.
Interesting. Well, what do Lewy bodies do?
Well, Lewy bodies are responsible for the destroying of nerve cells in the brain. Would you like to test your knowledge?
Sure.
So, there are certain areas of the brain that can be affected by Lewy bodies. So you will be telling me the consequence when some certain areas are being affected.
I see, okay.
For example, if I ask you what Lewy bodies can do in hippocampus, and you will say?
They would cause problems with forming new memories.
Exactly. What if the Lewy bodies occur in the cerebral cortex?
Problems with thoughts and information processing, language, and planning.
Well, that's correct. Final question. What if the Lewy bodies occur in the brainstem and the midbrain?
Well, I know the midbrain has the substantia nigra. Is that how you pronounce it?
Yeah.
Cool. And that has to do with movement, so we get problems with movement there. When it comes to the brainstem is just important for everyday functioning and basic alertness and sleep, so there'd be problems there. And then also, I know that the limbic cortex is somewhere around there, and that has to do with emotions, so there'll be problems.
Yeah, see what school taught you.
Yeah, well, I have Dr. Nunabel to thank.
Well, we're here. Let's go in.
Let's do it.
So, dementia with Lewy bodies actually covers two different types of dementia that involves Lewy bodies. There's LBD, which is Lewy body dementia, which is one of the two things that falls under DLB, dementia with Lewy bodies. DLB covers LBD. DLB also covers PDD, which is Parkinson's disease dementia, which is usually originally thought of to be Parkinson's, which starts with movement disorders, and then transitions into a few more dementia, memory type problems that marks it as DLB. DLB covers LBD and PDD. Someone with Parkinson's disease dementia would have problems doing something like this.
Dope.
So how are you and Wilson doing?
We're doing well. The medications you prescribed have really helped with some of Wilson's symptoms.
I'm glad to hear that.
How did you find out he had LBD?
Well, he actually presented in a pretty rare way. He started out with some neuropsychiatric symptoms, like having hallucinations, acting out, and having problems with complex mental activities. It led to a diagnosis of LBD from the very beginning.
Are there other ways LBD can present itself?
Yeah, I've actually done some research on this subject. Other DLB patients can present with a movement disorder at first, which leads to an initial diagnosis of Parkinson's disease. But then as they progress, they'll start to exhibit some memory loss or some neuropsychiatric symptoms that lead to a development of a DLB disorder. And they can also present with more of a cognitive memory disorder, which usually leads to an initial diagnosis of Alzheimer's. Then over time, one or two symptoms will lead to a change in diagnosis to DLB.
Okay, so would you mind sharing some of the symptoms Wilson has had?
Sure. At first it was visual hallucinations, delusions, and behavioral changes, like changes in thinking and reasoning. Then he developed some more problems with motion, some of the things you would often associate with Parkinson's, like hunched posture, balance problems, and rigid muscles. He also developed malfunctions of the autonomic nervous system, like with blood temperature regulation, things like that. We have him on some prescriptions for that.
Wow, that seems like a lot. That must be pretty difficult for both of you.
Yeah, but there are treatments. Right now they focus on lessening the symptoms because we can't treat the problem, which is the destruction of the nerve cells. Right now we have him on L-DOPA, which helps with his Parkinson's symptoms. We also have him on some selective serotonin reuptake inhibitors, which help with depression. That's often a problem in DLB patients. If REM sleep disorder ever does occur, then clonazepam could be prescribed.
What is REM sleep disorder?
So usually when you sleep and dream, only your eyes move, which is why it's called REM, for rapid eye movement. But with this disorder, you act out your dreams, sometimes violently, and it can be harmful to the people around you.
There are also some other treatments we haven't yet started Wilson on.
Yes, we haven't turned to antipsychotics yet, which help with the hallucinations, but they can have some pretty serious side effects that could harm the more Parkinson's side of Wilson's problems. We also haven't tried cholinesterase inhibitors because he hasn't really shown any of the Alzheimer's memory cognitive function problems yet.
Well, thank you for your time. I'm glad you two are doing fairly well. I can't wait to share your story at the upcoming Neuroscience Conference.
Thanks for checking in.
I took some good notes for it.
Yeah.
Let's go.
Okay.